truth,
love,
and the good.
Here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tension Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts and co-founders, Stefan Ravalli, a meditation and mindfulness teacher, also a mindful service teacher and content creator as well. And I am joined today by my good friend and co-host and co-founder, David Tian. How are you, David?
Hey, great. What's up? Good to be here with you again. And good to introduce Tension to our video crowd. And I'm excited to get going.
Me as well.
Yeah, so this is a topic that I've been working on for about 2 or 3 years intently. So producing content around it. But it seems like through just more probing that the lesson's not getting across or they don't quite understand the principle. So I want to dedicate this whole discussion with Stefan on it and also pick Stefan's brain because I don't think I've had the discussion with Stefan. So maybe he's got some new ways of approaching it. So here's the topic. The idea of being enough or worthy, that is what is keeping achievers from finding fulfillment and happiness on a consistent basis and just as basically their default state. And instead, being achievers from a young age probably, having that growth and striving as priorities of ways of becoming significant or feeling significant as their default mode. And when things are going well, in other words, they see progress in their growth or in their striving or the results are coming in, they're generally happy. When there's some kind of stagnation or they meet an obstacle or there's any kind of backwards progress, they lose their passion in life and they start to now thrash and struggle. And then especially in their romantic or intimate or love relationships. I'm thinking specifically about family relationships. So this is the quintessential or the classic achiever who spends all day at the office and all week at the office and then wonders why his kids hate him or his kids aren't connected to him. And then maybe as he's getting to retirement, realizing that he doesn't really even know his kids very well. And the same, of course, with his wife, that he sees her more as a sidekick or an accessory, and not in any kind of literal sense of like the trophy wife. That's too easy to dismantle and dismiss. But that they actually see the wife, and many of them are looking for, when you ask them, what do you want in a partner, as a part of his list, and very high up on his list, is a woman that will help him in his career and challenge him to grow. So these are very still achiever metrics for looking for a wife. And they're wondering why don't I feel love and connection in my life? And maybe it's because they're prioritizing these other things as achievers of growth and striving and achieving as the basis for not just happiness, but also love. Letting love into their lives seems foreign to them. They're not even sure how that happens without earning it. And so in all these different areas of life that I help people in, including dating, relationships, there is in the background this assumption that you have to go and earn it. And I had this assumption until, I guess, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. And even in the old dating products I used to coach in and record almost a decade ago now. And some of them that are still being sold now by other companies that I created over a decade ago would say that you do need to earn your confidence as a kind of like competency view of confidence, that you're confident when you know what the fuck you're doing. So learn to do it well and you will feel confident. Then you don't need to do any kind of trickery of the mind to feel confident. And I was solidly an achiever, as you can imagine and you can see, and just that assumption. And it was quite a lot of work to come to the realization at a deep level in my unconscious mind that just sitting with who I am now, even though obviously there is no finite improvement. So it's not like we're getting scored out of 100. Are you 100 out of 100 human being or something like that? There's always room for improvement no matter how high you go. And despite that, I am okay or enough or worthy of love just in who I am now. And even more, I guess, let me just give 2 examples real quick, 2 analogies or metaphors real quick, and then pass it over to you, Stefan, is the analogy of the baby. What the hell? The analogy of the baby. The metaphor or the image of the baby. When a baby is first born, it doesn't need to do anything to be worthy of love. And we naturally feel love for a defenseless, innocent baby that's just a newborn. And it's an amazing thing that as we get bigger as human beings, we take on these beliefs that we now have to go and earn it. And somehow then our worth as human beings actually decreases over time the bigger we get, which can't possibly be true. And if it's true, then someone needs to defend a view of that, because it doesn't seem to me just obvious on the surface of it. So once you encounter a baby, a newborn, and your heart melts and you just feel love for it immediately and don't demand or expect or need anything from it for you to feel this love for it, that is one of the turning points of especially a man who's weighed down by toxic masculinity. That's usually one of the big turning points, a newborn, and sensing that. And then the second is, if we think about human beings who are developmentally delayed or handicapped, and I hope that in your life you have someone that you love who is in that situation. I have an autistic nephew who's actually brilliant, almost a savant, maybe a savant. But we didn't know that until he was about 14. He was just nonverbal. And I've taken care of, through social services in Ontario, was paid to basically, I didn't do much. I just basically babysitting, make sure he didn't hurt himself. An older man who was autistic and nonverbal. And we had almost like a Ouija board kind of thing where I held his hand and he pointed through a letterboard to communicate. But he needed help with a lot of things physically. And just thinking, okay, he's got almost zero achievements here. It's a big deal when he can dress himself and all kinds of other things. And does that make him less worthy or less less okay as a human being, worthy of love and connection? Is he less worthy of love and connection? Is he less worthy of our attention and our care? And and I hope the answer to that is no. Though I might run into like an achievement Nazi or something. But I think on the surface, again, we would say, no, he's just as worthy and has that intrinsic worth as a human being. And I like to use a brilliant story, Flowers for Algernon. It's a book about, you should read it. If I summarize it, I'm now spoiling it for you. And it was a book given to me by my wife, and it took a while for me to have that lesson sink in, but fiction and story is such a powerful way to do it. And it was another example right there. Most people don't actually take away that lesson of human worth from reading that book, and instead it's about some other kind of tech innovation or something like that. But that's a really great illustration as well of where do we draw the line at which point is that person who cannot achieve or does not have achievements less worthy as a human being of love and connection. And then the counter argument, and I'll just leave it there, counter argument often is in the back of their mind. They won't say it out loud, but the more I probe, I find the counter argument is, yes, it's true that we're worthy of love and connection, but we're not worthy of whatever worldly metric that they want, like money or a promotion at their job or in athletics, winning the trophy, right? So that's all true. But then what happens is the achiever links being worthy of love and connection to being worthy of some other outward thing, external thing. So in order for him to feel that love and connection, to allow that to happen, he's got to get all these other accolades in and locked in to allow himself to feel that worth in being enough as a human being. And as soon as he makes that link in his unconscious mind or consciously, he's now undermining his own self-worth. And then they wonder why their relationships don't succeed. And either they're on the grandiose narcissism side, where they just take everybody for granted and they're just plowing forward on their career, and then they don't make room for that love and connection that's there all the time, whenever they want it, but they have to dial into it and not be focused on achieving in the future. Or they become needy and codependent because they're lacking in intrinsic, or the belief that they're intrinsically worthy, and then become insecure. They have these core insecurities that sabotage through the neediness. They sabotage their attractiveness in their dating. So either way, it just destroys their personal lives. And this ends up being the fundamental issue that I keep running up against in working with clients. They have the intellectual assent to, yes, I understand intellectually that I am enough, but then they run their lives in a different direction.
I love this territory to explore since it's stuff that I think even someone who might seem contented and do a lot of practices that help them feel more calm and at peace and, you know, settled in themselves will experience, because this is a line that you can always be walking throughout your life. And I'll explain what I mean by this. So, when I started meditating, I began to become a lot more connected with my, I guess you can say, just innate value. And that's what I found in people that I taught as well. They're just suddenly realizing that who they are is I don't want to say perfect, because that's kind of a trap that people fall into with a lot of spiritual language, and why a lot of people avoid it. Because I think people like to just say, you're so perfect. You're just like the universe's absolutely pristine creation, right? And then they say, okay, well, this is potentially something the ego can hijack and say, like, I'm just so great. I don't need to at all manage myself and at all work on this stuff that's creating problematic dynamics in my life. And, I don't need to be at all considerate to others or anything. Right. So that is a trap, and one that I don't bother entertaining, because I think there's a more honest way of going about all of this. There's a realization that happens when you start meditating that, whatever you are is simply, it's right. It's whatever it needs to be. You're whatever you need to be, and you are to the world whatever you need to be to the world. It's not going to look perfect, and it's not going to feel perfect exactly. Although there is a place that you can contact and begin to sort of integrate with your daily life that has a sense of peace and acceptance with things as they are and life as it unfolds. But this is only one half of the coin, one side of the coin here. And the other side is this part of us that is sort of driven to always grow and improve and always refine ourselves. And that part can't be sacrificed to simply, revel in our perfection, so to speak. And I think that's why a lot of people maybe avoid Eastern ideas, because they think like, oh, it's just like an escape hatch out of, life and all of its challenges. And I think a lot of the times people will really quickly say, after they start meditating, that they just want to just get away from it all and go on a retreat or go up to the mountains or just live at some cabin somewhere, and like life will be better there. I think we've talked about this. It's their need to remove themselves from challenges, and their need to remove themselves because they realize that they've had an unsustainable relationship with their life, because they've been striving and pursuing the wrong metrics for valuing themselves. And they're like, I need to shut this off and find something else that actually is a lot more, enriching and sustainable. So they think, okay, well, I just got to go and just become a monk or something. But I will tell you that when you do that, you will then begin living this peaceful life, and you will feel agitated, because most people aren't designed to be monks, because most people have this drive to also, be out there in the world, bringing your value to the world, seeing your value in action, and feeling like you're, a part of a community that values you, and also that you're experiencing, like, I guess you could say, more aggressive and dynamic challenges than the ones that you might experience in a sort of simple monastic life, right? So basically, when you're kind of seeking to escape that's healthy. Sometimes we need to like pull back. But
Yeah. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Before I forget this thought. So in Asian traditions and in Asian history, there's rhetoric about non-doing and, I guess, kind of perfectionism. The Buddha nature is already in you and just need to realize it, etc. But the truth is, like just the practice is that's just rhetoric. And practitioners understand that it's just rhetoric. And what's happening is there's actually a clear hierarchy in the monasteries. And of course, you're in the monastery to get better at something. Mm-hmm. You get better at meditating, better at being a monk, better at the rituals, better at the reciting the Vinaya or whatever it is, right? Whatever the religious thing to do is, you get better at it. And then you have experienced monks who are experienced at something. It's not just being human, but it's, well, they might say it like that as a rhetoric, but they're better at something. And all through Chinese philosophy, Confucianism, Taoism, there's also a kind of skill, the skill of life or flow or wu wei, and being better at being one with the Tao. And it's something that as you study ancient Chinese philosophy, you just discover that it's about self-cultivation. So you're cultivating something. Whether the idea is that you're growing a seed into a plant, which, by the way, the metaphor there is you're the seed, and people are seeds growing into plants, or it's that you're an unformed lump of clay, and through cultivation, you form yourself into a useful vessel made of clay. And no matter what, the idea is that you're growing in some direction. And then they also have theories to explain why certain seeds don't grow. They don't have the right water or the right conditions or sunlight, etc. Or maybe the wrong ruler, maybe the wrong tender. And so baked into all religious practices is some kind of getting better at assumption. Otherwise, there'd be no point to doing any of it. And I suppose one of the differences on the other side of the equation, so we started off with being enough and being worthy on one side of things, and then the other, growing and striving. But even with the growing and striving, as you were talking, I realized that we do have this difference between growing versus striving. Those are very different things. So one of the problems is the reason why a guy would come back from work being burnt out during the day and seeing his wife and kids as sort of like furniture in the house that takes for granted because they're there to serve him, as furniture is. We sit on it, we use it to put things on, etc. Instead of seeing them as intrinsically worthy of and having that love and connection with them as the thing that makes the whole enterprise of life worth living. It's because when he's at work, he's striving. Often it's because he comes back enervated, he's drained, and the work itself was not fulfilling. Whereas growing, in many cases, makes it so that when you're enjoying what you do, and you love doing it, you lost track of time doing it, and it has some greater meaning for you. So even while you're doing it, you see how that day's work fits into this bigger picture that's of deeper meaning. So it's greater purpose for you. When you're done that task, 3 to 4, whatever hours that you're in flow, and you come out of it, you're not hating on everything. So I know plenty of Asian Americans who, in Asian culture generally is a very, relatively speaking, hardworking culture throughout all of the different philosophies. There's never been a philosophy. Well, I suppose maybe ancient Taoism had a rhetoric around being lazy, but this is a hardworking philosophy, and so there's a meritocratic, supposedly a meritocratic society as well for over 1,000 years, picking their politicians or government officials through very intensive examinations across the entire kingdom, imperial exam system. And this is what's created this sort of like, whoa, I got to work really hard in order to earn my place in society. Whether I have that place in society is going to tell me my worth as a human being and whether I deserve respect or even have rights as a human being. Even the idea of human rights is a relatively recent thing, that you have worth just in who you are instead of you being halfway between a human being and chattel, right? That somewhere in there is the rights of the slave. And so these Asians all around the world are choosing careers that will hopefully give them a steady paycheck. It's not that they're enjoying the work. It's not like they finish this. It's not like somebody who becomes a professional musician generally loves music, because it's not a very stable career choice. And especially if it's the kind of music you're passionate about, maybe not just teaching little kids how to play, basic piano, but you're really into the music for its own sake. And after playing 3 or 4 hours, you're drained in a good way. And now you've met a need at a deep level of connecting with yourself, of connecting through art with some other thing, nature, the universe, whatever. And now you're ready, you're kind of overflowing and ready for more. And then there are those who strive in a neurotic way, in a way that they're trying to meet their need for significance that can never be fully and in any kind of lasting way met through that activity. So growing and striving, just growth on its own, can be pleasant, energizing, and it can give you that, it's a different need that's being met there, growth, versus striving to meet the need for significance. So when we come back from a time of striving to try to meet our need for significance, to feel like we're enough if we put in enough hours in the job, or if we create this $1 billion business, only then will we be able to feel like we're enough and can contribute and be present with our children, with our spouses, and actually experience what life is all about. So just pointing out the growth versus striving difference there.
So I'll tell you, so what's the difference, right? So like, what's the difference? What's the thing that makes it unhealthy? Well, let's answer this question. Does every person that plays music love it? No, because there can reach a point in a musician's career where they don't love music anymore. And what has happened at that point? What makes them no longer love music? Because the thing that gives them the payoff, the thing that gives them that hit of dopamine that we become, so addicted to in our striving nature, is not within the practice of playing music itself. It's something from the outside. It's not his internal experience of playing music and the refinement of his craft, his or her craft. It's this sort of validation that comes from the outside. So album sales, or the cheer of the crowd, or how many nude women are like breaking down your tour bus door. And there's some sort of a system of abstract measurement that will take the joy away and just simply bring the calculating mind into it. And the calculating mind will never be satisfied when it's quantifying results based on some measurement system, right? It's simply the joy of your involvement and your refining of yourself. And this can be, we're going to refine this further though, because this can also get carried away a bit. But basically anyone that's doing something because of the joy of doing it is going to get satisfaction from it. But that doesn't have to be necessarily something as romantic as playing music. You can be like an actuary. You can be doing something.
Coding is a great example. So it's like flow, that you can find flow in almost any activity, including killing people. So you can imagine an immoral flow, or what in the Taoist studies we talk about the immoral, the assassin, the perfect assassin. So he is killing people, but he's in flow while doing it, and he loves doing it, right? So you can actually get this description of growing at some skill can apply to any skill that involves some kind of challenge. If you have the resource, so flow is a scientific concept, and it's very similar to the Wu Wei of the ancient Chinese philosophers. So it can be applied to anything.
But let's
I picked music because I was just on my mind, but coding is probably one of the closest to my audience, and they've probably or playing video games. You can now become a millionaire playing video games, which wasn't the case when I was a kid.
Right. Yeah.
So that's one you're just like, wow, you're losing yourself in it. You lose track of time. There's a challenge. You have the resources to meet that challenge, and you're getting immediate feedback on your performance. If those conditions are met, well, you'll be able to get into flow. And that's just one aspect, by the way, of growing. So you could just grow even if you're not in flow, but you're actually just growing like kids do, just in their bodies as they go through life. They get bigger and bigger. And sometimes it's fun, get new clothes. Sometimes it's not fun because now you can't control this awkward, lanky body anymore. And you're going to have to learn how to do that. But that growth is natural. That's not striving. It's not like working really hard, like somebody's like stretching out their bones. I know people who want to be taller and they just spend a lot of time hanging. I don't know if that actually worked or not, but it didn't seem like it. So that's the difference, right? Growing versus striving. So Mengzi, the second generation of Confucian philosophers in the 300 BC, the 4th century BC, had a analogy of the striving being with the seeds and the sprouts and all that, of trying to pull the sprouts, and you just end up pulling them right out of the ground, right? Because you're pulling so hard. It's like the analogy of somebody trying to pull the grass to make it grow faster. Right? That's striving,
right?
Versus all of the proper conditions for the growth of grass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, another trap of flow states is that everyone's now seeking them, and so now it's just become yet another thing to seek. So people are thinking, I'm not in a flow state right now. I must not be living life properly. I must not be growing properly. But in fact, those really clunky periods where there's all this internal conflict and self-doubt is an important period of facing an obstacle we have within ourselves. And that has to be addressed and overcome.
Yeah, that's just perfect. Yeah. So right now, I think people are going through a period of gestation, right? It's hard for them to strive. They're not able to go to the office. They're not able to go to their normal ways of getting their achievement fix. And well, for most professions, not all. And right now there are people who are going through a lot of health scares, or people that they love in the ICU or something. And I'm in that case too, and just sort of waiting to see what's going to happen and just hoping for the best, but also realizing that this is a period sort of like the chrysalis of a caterpillar, that the trust is that there will be something greater that will come of it, even if it's not obvious at first. And that is part of growth. So I'm sure if you can imagine the mind of a caterpillar, when it enters its cocoon, it's not in flow. Like, yeah, this is really, it's hard to imagine the mind of a caterpillar, but imagine you were a caterpillar, that you're not like, yeah, this is the shit, man. I now have to sit here, lie here and think I'm going to die in this cocoon. But it's this dark tunnel. And that's what it's like experientially for real, true transformation when it's happening. That if you were to struggle against it and resist it and say, no, this can't happen, and you just go deeper into that abyss, you're not going to get through the other end of the tunnel if you keep fighting the other way, running backwards rather than through it. And with that stoic image of the obstacle is the way is another great way of explaining it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it might feel like to you that that's striving, but the point of life is that right now, here and now, is the beautiful thing. So many people are putting off their happiness for some far away goal. And part of even going through that chrysalis is, I'm not good enough as I am. I'm waiting till I become a butterfly. I'm going to put off my happiness until this frickin' darkness is over, so that I can now experience soaring as a butterfly. And of course, being a butterfly is going to be more, and being able to fly is going to be more pleasurable, enjoyable than being stuck in the cocoon. But even that time in the cocoon is part of the point of life. This is one of those things that if you can understand it, you can now understand why you're enough just the way you are, with all your brokenness, with all your inabilities, with all your mistakes and perceived weaknesses and failures, and that itself is the point of life. That the point of life is not to become perfect, or even if you were in a monastery on some fucking mountain, the point of life isn't to become the master meditator, and only then will I find enlightenment. Fuck that. Enlightenment is here right now if you are able to see it. That right here in the dirt, in the darkness, in the grime, in the shit that's happening to you, is the flower that, if you were to perceive it, will give you the aroma of life. Pushing that analogy a little far now.
Here's a
here
really,
and now. Right?
yeah.
Here and now.
And I think people that have located their self-worth, in anywhere outside of themselves, in all of these external achievements, a really good practice for them, if they're not getting it, would be to just say, okay, fine. So having all of this stuff, is there anything special in the stuff that's going to make your life better? And no way would they be able to locate the actual specialness of the stuff. Okay, money is only good and has value insofar as there's a story of what it can be translated to around it. It can get me this. It can get me that. It can make this girl like me. It can get me that. It's all just this mutually agreed upon story that we're looking for in all of the stuff we gather, right? I want a nice house so that when people come over, they say, ooh, what a nice house. And then I feel good. So let's go beyond all of the stuff now and just think about, okay, so how's the stuff going to make you feel, right? What's the state the stuff is going to give you? And when people start to dig into that, they like imagine like, okay, I'm now in my ideal life. I have everything I need, everything I can possibly imagine, making it everything I need it to be. How do I feel? Right. And they'll usually come up with some simple language. I feel, like I feel just really inspired. I feel really pleasant. I feel just really connected, and because now that's a period when this like agitated sense of I just need more to feel a little better is gone. So now they're just left with like, I feel this. And then you say, okay, fine. So why can't you have that right now? It's just a feeling. It's something that can be generated in the snap of a finger. It's not located in any of the things. The things are just this sort of way of stimulating the feeling, but they can actually access that feeling right now and cut out the middleman of all of this striving. And then once you realize that, you can then pursue things that help generate the feeling that aren't going to knock you around in this endless like game of just clawing. Okay, I want to be inspired. What can I do to be inspired? Do I need to like, break $6 million in revenue in my enterprise? Or can I actually experience inspiration by making someone smile? And in fact, once you look at that, it's like, wow, the simplest little connection I can make with someone can actually give me so much more than any of the actual achievements I've even experienced in life up until that point. Now, another layer to this is also now what you're doing is you're just simply living a life of service, which is what fulfilled people do. So like this fulfilled state you want to be in, what are you going to do when you're in that state? Anyone that's in that state of fulfillment, they're now thinking, what can I do for others? That's what they're thinking then, because I have everything I need. So what can I do to lift up everyone around me? Because that'll be the most kind of enriching, life-giving experience I can have. How can I share my fulfillment? That's all any fulfilled person will ever say. They're not like, how can I get more fulfillment? They already have it all. They're already perfectly abundant inside. So think about that and then think, okay, so as a fulfilled person, all I'll want to do is make someone smile. That'll give me more than $10 million in revenue. So then seek that and then observe the interaction in making someone smile. Observe your role in it. Observe the power you have to elevate someone and observe the feeling it gives you. And the more you're just kind of aware of the simple hits you can give yourself by just not being anything special, like not being this super human you imagine yourself being, by being your simplest self, your simplest, like as you shot out of the womb and naturally grew out of the grass, like not being pulled out, but naturally grew in this very natural way that we sort of blossom as people. To become what you are now, that can just simply be present, listen to someone, ask the right questions, maybe, say a kind word and watch the wonderful effect you can have on someone and say, wow, this is an amazing ability I have. And this is a much more effective and sustainable way to notice your innate value that just sort of naturally blossoms out of you in a much more easier open flow than the sort of hard driving we are normally going to sentence ourselves to, in looking to score all these points. Score those points, by the way. Like that's fine too. But when that hijacks the sense of self-worth, then that is when you're going to not only like run into trouble and unnecessary suffering, but actually lose contact with a really valuable resource that will have such a more profound value and utility for you than your ability to achieve all these things with all your skills. And I'm going to leave it there and actually see what you have to say about that.
Yeah. So that stimulated a 3-step way that I was thinking of getting out of this problem here. So if there's, first of all, the sign that they're not satisfied, that they're not fulfilled, is that they're thinking primarily about what they can get for themselves rather than what they can contribute to others. Mm-hmm. And this is a nice way of showing somebody who likes to think highly of themselves and think they're very advanced psychologically or in maturity, but they're still not focused on contribution, not contributing to their kids at home or to their wife, but primarily maybe they're like ticking off or checking that box of contribution because they donated to some philanthropic cause, 10% of their proceeds or whatever, right? And so this is a nice corporate move to assuage your conscience, and when it really wasn't part of contribution, it was just part of a corporate policy. And if that gets their attention, well, then that's great, and we can move on. But even if it doesn't, here's another one. What do you want to feel at the end of your striving? So that's what part of what you were getting at. So hopefully, if you achieve this faraway goal, then you will be overjoyed, right? You're going to celebrate. Yes, I've made it. I am great. And I'm now awesome. I can show mom and dad. They'll be proud of me. I can be proud of myself. Of course, you'll have other financial benefits or whatever, so that feels nice for.
And you'll feel that forever. That feeling will never go away. Just so you know.
Right. So that'll last, right? And anyway, so the point, what one way that achievers get around or don't have to confront the realization that they don't believe they're enough is because enough and worthy sounds so low and easy to attain versus great and a billionaire and awesome and a gold medalist and all, like some super high thing. And, they'll settle for silver or bronze, right? But they really want to get gold. And what they don't realize is that when we in psychologists are using the terminology of enough or worthy, we're also in achiever language. That means that you're great, that you're awesome, that you've made it, that you're the man, and that you're successful, right? So that it ends up being only when I'm successful can I feel good about myself. Or, for a lot of the guys that are attracted to my dating material, only when I'm successful am I enough to date. I just heard that one or saw that one on Facebook today in a comment to one of my posts. I got to be enough. I got to work so hard just to be enough to date or good enough to date, to be worthy of it. I got to work so hard. I was like, whoa, where's this coming from? And this whole mindset and approach will sabotage your dating success. The idea that you're not good enough just in the way in who you are as a human being, but that you've got to do all the striving to get this feeling. And the point that you made is you can get that feeling right now. And most people don't know how to do that. So the harsh truth is most people have not read Stoic philosophy, have not studied Buddhism, have not studied emotions or even just basic psychology. So they don't know what actually causes emotions. They just think they feel all kinds of emotions, but they don't know why. And because they don't know why or what the triggers are, they have no way of controlling them, and they don't know how to control their physiology, their bodies, of deeper breathing, of looking in certain directions, of standing up straighter, of opening up. They haven't never done yoga or any kind of movement practice. They don't know. They have never felt that, or they've never consciously made that connection between having a really great workout and feeling good at the end, or even just sitting in meditation. Most people have not done that. So they're not yet aware of how powerful just changing your physiology can be. They haven't walked on fire, for instance. If you've done the Tony Robbins event, Unleash the Power Within, you would have experienced it that way, in a very powerful way. Though that is a dangerous thing because it will actually just give you more achiever energy. You're like, I like this because I can use this to get more of what that's striving. I can strive harder. But anyway, but the thing is, it does work, right? So this control over your physical body. And then, of course, your language that you use to describe your reality and to parse your reality, and what you focus on mentally, that will then lead to these thoughts, then leading to, because of interpretations in a certain way, will then lead to emotions. And all of those factors are controllable, but they are a skill, and you can get better at them. And returning to the most fundamental point we're making, so that 3-step thing was realizing that you're striving for this feeling at the end of it, not the actual physical thing you get, like a trophy or cash or money, whatever, but that it's a feeling that you want, that you can get that feeling actually if you just develop certain skills and control over the factors that lead to those feelings. And then finally, the fact that you're not driven by contribution is a sign that you're still striving and trying to accrue to yourself, because often the belief is, or the assumption is, when I'm enough, then I will give. When I've made enough money, then I'll be able to give. because right now I don't got enough for me based on whatever your goal that you're striving for is. I haven't reached that goal yet. When I get that, then I will contribute. And again, this is a sign that you're not filled up yet, that your cup is not yet runneth over, that you're still looking to fill that need of that you're enough, that you're good enough, or that you're awesome or great, or whatever it is that in your terminology that you need to say, yeah, this is when I can be good enough to rest now. And part of the practical implication of this is many people who are striving for that, like striving to get that feeling that they're awesome, that the achiever thinks awesome is the thing they're striving for, but we keep saying enough. And once they realize they are good enough, their fear is if they think that they're good enough, they're going to become lazy and not do anything. They just sit at home and watch TV and eat Ben and Jerry's ice cream all day.
Actually, I just want to say something about this. There's been a kind of an advent in self-compassion, which sounds, again, kind of fluffy, but like it's studies that have looked into the effect of actually forgiving ourselves for not being this incredible person we've imagined ourselves being. And by the way, if you think that you're always pressuring yourself and you're like a uniquely striving person, you are not. Everyone is constantly destroying themselves inside for not meeting some requirements or expectations they've set for themselves. But research has shown that people that actually have compassion for themselves when they're not perfect, when they stumble, when they make mistakes, and actually when they in fact embrace themselves when they make mistakes and aren't perfect, because they know that's when they're learning the most, actually achieve more and actually are more successful in life. Firstly, because they're more ready to experience the pain and difficulty of making mistakes because they know they're going to be fine with it. And in fact, the harder you are on yourself, the more you're probably going to end up subconsciously avoiding challenges because you actually can't emotionally take it, because you're actually going to be so hard on yourself, and you know that you will, that you'll actually be more likely to avoid major challenges. And actually, the more self-worth you have, the more you'll put yourself in front of any challenge, because you know that even if you blunder it completely, you know your innate value anyway. And this was just yet another external event that doesn't have to have any influence on your sense of yourself and who you are. And that there's going to be many more opportunities anyway to export your value to the world. And so there's really far less approach anxiety when it comes to big challenges, the more self-compassion you have. And the science is in on that, if that's what you need to actually start giving yourself a break.
Well, yeah. And I want to tell the achievers that it shouldn't matter. So I know plenty of people who are very successful, and they're neurotic, and they're restless. And when they're not working, when they're sitting with their family or alone or whatever on their downtime, that they're not experiencing the goodness of life. And they're wondering why, because they've worked so hard at their job, worked so hard, so much harder than everyone else, because it feels like hard work, because it's not enjoyable. And maybe they had a talent when they were younger, like the example with the music, and then they had to professionalize it. And then that brings all this other stuff that's not enjoyable. They just enjoyed the music. Or they just played so much and so one-dimensional that they didn't get to have all kinds of other kind of creative outlets. And so they started hating this one thing that we're forced to do. But now they have no choice because they didn't develop anything else, they feel. So they just keep doing it more and more and more, and they hate it. And they can get really good at it that way. In fact, I know a lot of really rich people who are miserable. So even if the empirical evidence is not there for that claim, the claim isn't that the claim we're making is not that you'll be more successful, right, if you believe you're enough. Because that would just encourage your striving more. So you're like, oh, there's a new way to strive. I just believe I'm enough, and finally I'll get that.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing will elude you, because for you to even begin the whole project with that desire will sabotage the whole thing. And so the one practical thing I would leave is we're still focusing on what do you want to feel at the end of it. So many people think success, but right, so success isn't a feeling per se. It's a metric, right? It's like some kind of external thing. So it's money, or you won the race, you broke the tape before anyone else as you crossed the finish line. But then what do you hope to feel at the end of it? Because you're not just a robot. And by the way, if it just comes down to success, you will be replaced by an android. I just watched the whole season of Picard on Amazon Prime. It was awesome. They brought back Data. Data is like going to beat you on everything, right? All these synthetics, right? These AI robots. And they'll even maybe figure out how to program what seems like emotions, right? That's the whole point of AI. It has its own consciousness, right? And they will kick your ass at everything. They're smarter than you. They'll do computation faster than you. They have projections faster than you. They'll be able to run faster than you. The whole thing, stronger than you. And then what? What good are you as a human being? Well, now we're just competing in the minor leagues, right? And now I have to settle for the minor leagues. But what you'll discover is once you let go of all the striving, especially as an adult, you'll discover that there are things that you really do enjoy that you're not allowing yourself to indulge, so to speak. And that's the achiever's view. That is an indulgence, right? That this is just fun stuff, but it has no real payoff in the striving that I need in order to feel like I'm awesome, which in other words means I'm enough. And when you finally believe that you're enough, you'll discover, and I've seen this over and over, that these very successful, very rich guys who hated their day jobs but did it to earn a paycheck and were just fucking good at it, but they have burnt out on it, finally discover that they really enjoy fucking, I don't know, basket weaving. Could be anything, right? So we know a guy who, an example of a friend, a mutual friend, who was trying to do a tech startup for years and years and years. The thing freaking failed, and his heart was never really into it. In his mid-20s, he was starting to learn coding, just to start coding, instead of trying to, they were hiring coders, but he just wanted to. So anyway, and then his passion was this whole other thing. It was in the culinary field. And when he finally embraced that, like, I'll just freaking do this, even if I'm in a freaking basement and the traditional Asian community that I grew up in doesn't respect this profession, but I'm really good at it and I love it. And maybe it's not going to make me millions and millions, but I love it. He embraced that and went all in. And guess what? He enjoyed his life. He enjoyed the activity. He was really passionate about it. He innovated. It was just coming to him naturally because this is what he loved to do. And then later, he was able to monetize it or capitalize on it more. And this is the amazing thing about living in the 21st century. There are so many ways to monetize your passions. And this is one of Gary Vaynerchuk's really cool messages from the beginning. It's like, if you're into Smurfs, Smurf it up. Make a Smurf blog. And when they have the Smurfs movie, they'll contact you and pay $100,000 to sponsor you. And that was, in fact, what happened. Right? So you can actually make a decent living. You probably won't be a billionaire, but you can make a decent living doing the thing you really enjoy. But that's down the road. First, you have to become really good at it. And improving in something that you love doing doesn't feel like striving anymore. Maybe once in a while, once a month, you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway. But most of the time, if that's just natural growth because you love doing it. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Because you love it, you're constantly searching for new sources and it gives you energy. And you bring this energy to your relationships. And now you're open, right? So you're enjoying life because no one enjoys being around someone who hates their life. And it's just like working really hard and resents the whole thing and just can't wait until I can finally, cash out on this freaking company I hate creating. And, versus the person who's making maybe 70,000 a year instead of 7 million a year. But at that 70,000 is loving life, enjoying every aspect of it. And when his kids come up and meet him, he's like got a big smile on his face and is able to be present with his kids because he feels like he's enough. So that's part of the practical payoff. If it's the feelings that you're after, you can get those feelings right now. And even more, the days that those hours each day that you spend on that activity that you're striving in, if you were to just put that into something that you really enjoy because you believe you're enough. You don't have to go and become a doctor because mom and dad won't love you unless you do. But you can do this other thing, maybe it's playing guitar or whatever it is. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it, but maybe you still won't get better at it. But what the liberating thing is, you'll enjoy your life. And I also had this question repeatedly asked in the past few months. I don't know if it has to do with the coronavirus or not, but this impending doom. Like, we're going to die. Everyone's going to lose their jobs. We're going to go through depression. We're going to live out in the street and all this. And that's a deep concept of What if you were going to die tomorrow or 5 years from now? Or, some people who are really worried about climate change think the Earth is going to end in like 20 years. I have no idea. Anyway, the science on that. But okay, let's assume that. All right, that's good for you. All right, to think I could die in 20 years. Life could end 20 years or 5 years or tomorrow. What would you do with your now? Because if you were striving so hard and putting off, delaying your gratification and enjoyment of life until the end, and then your end comes much sooner than you thought, how tragic would that be? But you can actually discover right now, in the here and now, in the present, all of the enjoyment that you've been putting off.
I want to leave with, I know we got to go. I want to leave us with something. So I'm really into tea ceremony. It's a practice that makes me simply just enjoy the simplicity of being me in the moment, sharing tea with others. That's my mindful service, like crucible. It's really powerful. The slogan of that is Ichigo Ichi-e. Which was one encounter, one opportunity. Where did that come from? It came from Ai Naosuke, who was a shogun, official from 19th century feudal Japan, who knew at any moment he was going to get assassinated. He knew he was going to die. And so what became really important to him? The really simple things, the really simple pleasures of connecting with people. And he had total reverence for it. And the tea ceremony is a practice of discovering your total reverence for the small miracles of just simply being a human being in this moment, able to share it with another. That's all I'll say on that.
Yeah, awesome. Let's wrap it up there. That's a great ending. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and glad we got to dive deeper into this topic. Thanks so much, Stefan. And where can they find more about you?
I'm on the Serve Conscious Education project that I founded to teach people how to take whatever service role they're in and make it their crucible for self-development. www.serveconscious.com. Lots of free content and free education tools, and also one-on-one consultation on how to serve better and general meditation and mindfulness in your life. And you, David?
Yeah, very cool. And you can find me at davidtianphd.com. That's davidtianphd.com. I've got another couple podcasts. One of them is the DTPHD Podcast, David Tian PhD Podcast. You can find on our website, and another one on masculinity issues called Man Up, Masculinity for the Intelligent Man. So you can find out more about that on our website at davidtianphd.com. And this is part of the Tension Mindfulness Project. And you can discover more about tension mindfulness at tensionmindfulness.com. That's TENSHIN mindfulness.com. Thanks so much, Stefan. That was awesome. And we'll wrap it up here. Thanks so much for listening and watching.
A pleasure. Thank you, guys. Thank you, David.
Hey, it's David again. Before you go, a couple last things. First, all the show notes and links to resources can be found at davidtianphd.com/DTPHD podcast. Or you can just go to davidtianphd.com and find it through the top navigation menu. Second, if you'd like to interact with me and other like-minded fans of this podcast personally, then join our private DTPHD Podcast Facebook group. We've got an awesome community of intelligent, wise individuals from literally all around the world. You can send a join request to the group using the link you'll find in the show notes of every podcast at davidtianphd.com/DTPHD podcast. Click the link, log into your Facebook, and then click to join. We approve join requests every day. So go to davidtianphd.com and click the link to join. See you inside our group.